So this comes also with the UNESCO Chair, being allowed to speak, being allowed to sort of make not just claims, but to make an analysis which may not be the one that is done by everybody else. I think that's what leadership is about. It's also about convincing people that it's fun to do things or it's interesting to look at things.
We're here in the studio on Friday, June 13th to record a new session of the OEGlobal Voices podcast that we produce here at Open Education Global. And each one of these episodes, we share with you conversation style, people, practices, and ideas from open educators around the world. And in this case, we're traveling to Nantes, France, where we're speaking to Colin de Higuera. And unless he's traveling, I think our last conversation during Open Education Week, he was in Ireland. Colin was recognized last year, and deservedly so, with an individual Open Education Award for Excellence in Leadership. And we waited until now for a good reason, because just this week, the nominations are open for the 2025 awards. And I firmly believe, and you'll find out in this episode, that Colin's voice will truly help to both inform you about his work and his leadership and influence listeners, we hope, to consider submitting a nomination, or maybe 12. So I'm just your host here and editor and button clicker, Alan Levine, and I've been talking too much as usual. And so a warm welcome and hello, Colin. How are you today?
Bonjour, Alan, and bonjour to everybody who could be listening into this. I'm okay. I mean, it's hot in France and it's nearly summer. We've had a great year for open education, so I'm quite happy to talk about it and also to relate some of the good news with this lovely prize I was given last year.
This will be a good chance for me to catch up with everything that you're doing, and we'll touch on that a second. But so pretty much you said the affiliation, but I do like to say where you are, like map location, and also if you could describe for our audience, because I can see you through Zoom, but they can't. What's your physical surroundings? Where are you sitting right now?
So I'm actually a UNESCO Chair in Open Education, which means that I somehow sort of escape the normal lab routine, and I'm in a sort of a bit of a special place at Nantes University. It's a place which general public can come to. So on some days it's actually very busy and I can't get much work done because you end up sort of talking with people and it's fun. Today, let's say the truth, a Friday afternoon, it's pretty deserted and I've got quiet. I can be in a fairly open space and speak. So Nantes itself is a city in the west of France, nearly touching the Atlantic at the last bit of the Loire River, which is one of the famous rivers in France. And it's a university, one of the big ones, not necessarily one of the prestigious ones or the most prestigious ones, but we are big in terms of a number of students, about 40,000, and a number of staff, which might be about 4,000.
And we should mention that Nantes was the host, and you were heavily involved with the OEGlobal conference in, was that spring of 2022?
Well, actually, we had the honor of organizing two conferences.
Yeah.
Those were COVID days. So those were COVID days, and we got to organize the 2021 conference, which was supposed to be the conference we were meant to organize, but we had these tremendously complicated calls to make of deciding cancel, not cancel. Are we able to open? Even if we open, are people going to be able to travel and so onwards? So we actually held a really fun, I thought it was fun, 2021 online conference with exciting ideas. Those were the days where we experimented multilingualism. We had rooms discussing open education in Spanish and French and English. It was rather fun. And then we organized the 22 one, which was important for us, the team, but was also very important for Nantes as a university. I mean, if your university wants to actually move forward, organizing an event like Open Education Global is one way forward, because you suddenly realize by sort of bringing in people from the rest of the world how varied the ideas and opinions about this are. And you can also get your top brass to come and be part of the conference. And they also suddenly understand that this is not a sort of a niche type of event, but it's a very broad event, which is going to be interesting to all aspects of university life.
This is great. And just an elbow to my colleague, Igor Lesko, who organizes the conference. We didn't expect this, but Colin just gave a great plug for hosting future conferences. So everybody tune into that. You're in Nantes, France now, but where on the globe did you grow up? Where did you spend your childhood?
Okay, so my accent might not betray things, but I am not French. So I'm actually a European in the full sense of European, coming from various European countries. And but nevertheless, I did do all my life in France. I mean, I think I arrived in France at the age of 3 months old, and then did my studies and my career in France. I moved through sabbaticals and things, but I did it in France. But nevertheless, the fact that you do have sort of various nationalities, various languages, which is why I firmly believe in multilingualism, does make you have a different perspective to people who are only brought up in one language.
And a child in France, what did you think of school? What kind of student were you?
I suppose it was pretty good, but what I do remember, what does matter, was that school did give me opportunities that probably weren't there to be seized. What I mean is that school in France allowed me, for example, to learn French. When I went to school, I didn't know French. I learned French in school with other kids who helped me learn French. And school has got the capacity still today, or at least one of the things we're struggling for when we're pushing the open education agenda is equity. And equity is that basically some people, for example, an immigrant, might not have the same chances as somebody else. And school and education should provide him with the chances to actually be successful. Doesn't mean I've been successful. I mean, I feel I've been successful. I mean, even if other people don't, I mean, you do still feel that you fulfilled your dreams. So that's what matters.
Right. And this could be a long, but let's say if we can do this short travel. So you went to school, obviously France. You mentioned doing postdoc. What did you study in school, and what was the path that led you into being in open education and the UNESCO Chair? Because that's a fascinating journey, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm not from the social sciences. Boo. Right, I'm actually just a scientist. So I'm a scientist. My topic was I did my PhD in mathematics, and in those days, because I'm pretty old, the mathematics were still including computer science. Computer science hadn't sort of imposed itself as a unique topic. So I then became a computer scientist, and inside computer science, started doing very theoretical things, and then appeared this sort of rather strange idea that machines could learn. So I got interested. This sounds rather exciting. What does it mean? And so I did what you call machine learning. I mean, I was doing that last century, and doing things that basically today correspond to the research program of say, OpenAI or the big techs. But of course, when we were doing it, it was completely naively thinking, this is a really interesting idea. We're not at all sure that it's going to be of any use one day. So, but it was, sort of interesting problems, nice algorithms, some coding. I mean, nice things. So I did that, and with a number of other people, we did that all through, let's say, the beginning of this century. Until at some point we started realizing that something was a little bit getting wrong, because all these lovely technologies were starting to be useful, but they were not necessarily starting to be useful for the common good. They were starting to be useful to make some people immensely rich, or some companies very, very rich, or for states to control the individuals. So we thought, this is a wonderful technology. So machine learning led to AI. I hope you all understand it. And so we created with people from European networks something called the Knowledge for All Foundation. So this was a foundation whose idea was saying, can we use AI to disseminate knowledge? And when you start wanting to disseminate knowledge, you're thinking we need a model for this. And the natural model was Creative Commons licenses and what went with it, things that were called open educational resources, or even in those days, open education courseware. Okay, so these ideas were struggling around with people trying to come up with the idea of doing it, from the teacher's perspective, and we were a few trying to do this from the computer scientist perspective. Can we develop sort of tools, models, things that can do this? So that's where we moved in, and UNESCO started thinking that what we were doing was exciting, interesting, and a number of us sort of went in to start working with UNESCO, who in turn said, hey, we'll give you a UNESCO chair to actually make sure there's a little bit more visibility to what you're doing. So that's the story.
That's beautiful. I'm getting distracted because I really want to like your perspective on AI now. Was it anywhere near what you imagined? Like, is this state where we are what you had hoped for, or is it beyond? Like, because you were working, like you say, in the early days of machine learning and asking the same questions, like, can machines think?
Yes. No, we weren't asking that question. We were asking some very much more naive questions. Well, of course, no. Very few people were asking that sort of questions. The sort of can machines think? Those were questions that might have been asked in the 50s and 60s, and then people had to become pragmatic and say, what problems can we solve? Because that's beyond being able to be solved. So we were on problems that could be solved. For example, the sort of problem I spent most of the time trying to work on was, can I predict what the next word is going to be? Okay, which really sounded like just a sort of a little like a game, a prediction game. Can I put a distribution of probabilities on words? And never would have thought that this problem, which obviously I didn't solve, but that I was working on, was actually the key to the success of the large language models, right? Because that's the only thing they're doing. They're just predicting what the next word is or what the distribution of the next words can be. So yes, we were very naive in not understanding the potential of the sort of things we were working on.
Right. And so UNESCO just came to you and said, we believe in the work you're doing. Like, that had to be an incredible honor. And what's it like to be a UNESCO chair? What's a day in a UNESCO chair?
So it's not exactly like that, right? I mean, UNESCO approached us, we approached UNESCO, we started inviting each other to events, and little by little they suggested that there were these tools, I think we should call them tools, which are UNESCO chairs, to do this. So these tools, UNESCO chairs, they are sort of 4-year contracts. We don't get any money. There's no money involved. So luckily, when you have a UNESCO chair, you're able to ask other people for money. Doesn't mean they give you it, but we can ask. So what's the day like? Well, we've got to understand, and from the perspective of, let's say, United States, where you are, or France, where I am, we've got we had extremely powerful ministries of education. Okay, so ministries of education's job is twofold. One fold is logistics. How do I make sure that, things are happening in the schools and we're able to put one teacher in front of each classroom? But there's also a second job, which is intellectual, which is, what should we be teaching, right? How do we teach it, right? At what rhythm should we be teaching? Why are we doing this? So in let's say the richer countries, where we've got universities, we've got researchers, we've also got people working directly in the ministry to solve this question. But in probably more or less half the world, you don't have that. Right? You've only got the logistics, and even the logistics is hard to cope with. I mean, we calculate that there's still something like 64 million teachers missing on the planet. So even the logistics problem is there. So when you're in a country where you're only dealing with the logistics, you've still got the same problems. You've still got to know what you teach and how you teach it. So you can either go and fetch the big brothers. The big brothers can be the big companies or the big countries for them to tell you what to do. But those are just different forms of colonialism, which some countries don't really like. Or you go look at the documents that are produced by UNESCO, which are usually produced by teams which involve multiple countries and multiple perspectives. So there are these documents which correspond to what you could call policy documents or frameworks on which you can build your own policy, saying, okay, we want to introduce AI in the curriculum. Well, you can use these documents to say, okay, we're doing it in, using a framework which has been studied in a broad perspective. So I think that's what makes it really exciting. You talk with people very different, and you do know you have this extra responsibility.
Excellent. So last September, sorry, excuse my cat who's distracting. Last September, you got an email from us, let us know that you won this award for leadership, the Open Excellence Award. I mean, obviously, it seems a silly question to ask, like, what was your reaction? But what was that moment like? And who were like some of the first people that you told about it?
So I didn't get an email. I mean, I was listening live to the ceremony.
Oh, that's right. See, I forgot.
I only found out that. I mean, it's much more exciting than a boring email. No. No, you're sitting there. And, you're in full sort of listening to it. So clearly, yes, let's call it the opposition, even if obviously you don't regard these people as your opponents. I mean, but the people who are also on the shortlist, I mean, are pretty impressive. So you're thinking, but yes, I mean, I was very excited, and I know that the people around me were very excited. So it wasn't just me winning the prize. I mean, clearly there was the whole of my team that were feeling very concerned by this. But I think in many ways it was my university. My university had pushed my candidature. It wasn't my own idea to do this. And if they did this, it was because they wanted to, it's not the word show off, but, claim some sort of leadership and say, we are in Nantes well positioned to actually tackle these issues. And having prizes helps. It's difficult. It's a difficult one. You can never sort of give a causal effect to a prize. You can't say, thanks to this prize, we have produced 20 more OER. Obviously, if there was money involved, but in this case, there wasn't any money involved. But if there isn't money, it's just a prestige. And so you feel, you sense, you're pretty sure that it's going to have an effect, and it does have an effect. It means that people will not just look at you, but will look at the choices you have made with a new sort of respect. People who are doing the typical choice in universities of going for a pure research career, right, will look at somebody who's done a choice on, say, spending some time on UNESCO values or on open education or things like that, which, let's face it, it's not the winning choice as far as careers go. But then suddenly they think, okay, one second, who's right, who's wrong? It's not that obvious. So it does matter. So it matters for me, it matters for my team, and it matters for my university.
And what does it mean when people say, we recognize Colin for his leadership? What does it mean? I mean, leadership is kind of one of those terms that has its connotations and baggage, if you will, but also it means something, and leadership is important. So what's like your perspective on what it means to be a leader, or what leadership means?
So leadership, I suggest, means that when you're asked to talk about these things, you respect your own opinion, and you don't just have to come up with saying what other people have said before. Okay? So leadership means that you're able to synthesize, obviously, from the work of other people, from history, from research, and but you can come up with new ideas. You've got the legitimacy to speak out and to speak up. You're making a risk also. It doesn't mean you're suddenly non-vulnerable. I mean, people can say, "Hey, what you're saying is absolute rubbish," but you are allowed to say things. So this comes also with the UNESCO Chair, being allowed to speak, being allowed to sort of make not just claims, but to make an analysis which may not be the one that is done by everybody else. I think that's what leadership is about. It's also about convincing people that it's fun to do things, or it's interesting to look at things. Well, I think it is the ability and the possibility to saying things.
And since that time, let's do a little bit of recap of what's been capturing your interest. I remember you did a lot of work on translation. We talked about the power of AI for translation, and you worked on that multilingual guide to AI, and this thing that had a certain number of reasons that you led during Open Education Week. But also, just like, what's really capturing your interest? Where's your curiosity going forward? I'm asking a lot of questions. So what's Colin been up to?
So I'm trying to just give, two trends. So the UNESCO Chair is in open education, resources, and artificial intelligence. So what I'm really interested is in the link in between the two. So one of these links is, as you're saying, the question of translation, automatic translation. And there's a number of things linked there. Sort of, what does automatic translation allow us to do? So we've explored at least two ideas here. One of them is, what is an open textbook? So we've spoken about this before. We have been lucky that we produced an open textbook on learning about AI, which incidentally got another prize this year. We got the Merlot 2025 award for that. So we're really happy. And as it's an open textbook, it's something that we can test ideas of what is an open textbook? How do we make sure that it can be translated as easily as possible using these new technologies into other languages? Because if we oblige everybody to read English, it's just not going to work. So, how do we do this? So we're trying some really, really exciting things that way. Second, around the same lines, we're thinking, what is a multilingual blog? So here we've tried and we've opened 2 multilingual blogs. So multilingual blogs means we've chosen a bunch of languages, and you can actually read things in the different languages. But we don't want to just, run an automatic translator over this, because it wouldn't be good quality. So some of the articles have been partially translated by AI and then finished off by humans. Depending on the articles, they may be written in some languages, but not in the others. And you can read them in a variety of languages, your own, the original version, and so onwards. So we're exploring that because I think it's a really exciting concept. And so since we've got these blogs, we thought, as you mentioned, for the Open Education Week to challenge our friends and colleagues. And I remember on a Monday morning, or in January, writing to a bunch of 40 people around the world saying, okay, we've come up with 22 good reasons for doing open education. And we think that, motivating people is important. So we've got this motivation problem. How do we onboard people? So would you be interested in taking one of these 22 articles and, writing about it? And we will publish it on these multilingual blogs during the Open Education Week. So this is what we did. The only thing, we also let the door open, saying if you have another reason we haven't thought about, you can. So somebody did come up and say that open education for public service was something important. We thought that was a great reason, and so we added it to the bunch, and we've got now 23 good reasons, which was the name of the operation. But again, it was a way of not only exploring open education, why we should do it, but it was also about exploring the multilingual aspects of communication. And so we've been playing with that. So that's one big line. The second line is also about motivation. It's probably the thing that's really exciting in this moment. AI in education is, I've been reading you, I've been seeing what we've been publishing. There's a lot of things published. One of the things that, in my view, is very absent is the why question, right? Which is, why do we learn? Can we capture why does a learner, this learner might be 12-year-old or might be 20 years old, why does she get up in the morning and go and learn? And so it's essential we understand this, because depending on the reasons that motivate this person, AI will or will not have an effect, or will have a positive effect or a negative effect. Or we can actually use AI and divert it positively, or at the contrary, if we're not careful, AI is just going to break that reason to pieces. And if the whole reason for which that person was happy to get up in the morning to go learn is now vanished because of AI, we've had it. So we are doing a number of things here, and we're working with students, of course. We're working with school children also to try and capture their idea of why they learn. And we're trying to also publish on the blogs what they are actually having to say about this. So what's this got to do with open education? Because I'm supposed to speak about open education. Well, my point of view here, and it's the point of view that we're trying to transmit through the chair, is that AI is the question and open education is the answer. Okay, so we have to understand the questions that are raised by AI and then come up with answers that are based on open education.
Oh, wow. I got much more than I was expecting. That is fantastic. And so we'll follow that work on the blogs, obviously. You've pretty much said this, but I'm also like looking for little clips that we can use for you to help persuade someone. Why should they go to the effort to submit a nomination this year? And part of this is because sometimes we hear like, oh, well, my work isn't really as important as Colin's or, someone else's. So there's that comparison thing where people downplay their own work. And we're trying to put out a message this year that the importance is the nomination, is that the naming of the work and projects that people are doing so they become more visible. And it's recognition of the field as well as the ones that get identified as winners. So can you sort of do a little promotional pitch as to why someone should go forward and think about something to nominate? Especially, I think one of the best things to do, and it's really rewarding, is to nominate someone else or something else. And it's such a great expression of gratitude. And I'd really like to encourage more of that.
Yes, I mean, two answers. The first one is that the field is vast and the comparisons are multi-dimensional. So you may be, less active with the media than Colin, right? But you're probably much more active in research than Colin, right? So basically, I don't think that people can compare. I mean, if I look at the winners of last year, we just didn't look the same whatsoever. We had completely different approaches to what we were doing there. So I first think that you just can't compare people. It's just completely different. The second thing is, yes, you're helping somebody by nominating that person. You're only helping. I mean, I suppose we've all got to be modest and say, oh, no, please don't nominate me. I mean, I would hate it, right? Oh, I would feel so ashamed. I mean, it's not fair. Whatever. Yes, okay, we're allowed to put that show on, but it helps tremendously to have a bit of gratitude, to have a bit of people saying sort of thank you. So it helps you as a person, but it helps you what you're doing. As I said, in our case, the prize meant that suddenly, local newspapers started approaching me to ask me questions. And I spoke about the prize like this one little bit, but I was able to speak about open education the rest of the time. So I've got, suddenly somebody's giving you a microphone and you're able to speak. So perhaps by saying this, I'm even frightening more people thinking, I don't want to do that. That's not the sort of thing I want to do. Sorry, guys, but I mean, somebody has to do it, right? I mean, if we want these open education issues to work, we have to onboard not just, the teachers. We have to onboard the students. We have to onboard the parents. We've got to onboard the policymakers. There's a huge amount of people that we have to convince out there. So give us the chance to actually speak about these things. And I think that the prizes work. The fact that I nominate somebody, actually, unless I tell that person is not even going to know that person has been nominated. So it's not necessarily that big deal. But I think we move things. I mean, if I nominate you, I'm going to go and chase for letters. If I chase for letters, I'm committing perhaps the university to actually write a letter and realize how important it is, and so onwards. Okay, so these are important things that will help us on the long term, but even on the short term, because as I say, I mean, it happens very quickly. Suddenly, nobody knows what this prize is. I mean, let's say in the local press, but as soon as one of them said, oh, he's obtained this prestigious prize, then the next media will say, oh, we have to interview him also.
We're also sort of mixing it with this theme, this idea about recognition is like planting a seed, and what we do, like the things that you decide to do in open education, it all starts with the seed of an idea. And the idea about things grow and they don't start off great. We're really trying to think of a nomination that's just like, when you garden, you put a seed in, you take care of the soil, it rains, you hope it grows, you nurture it. And I think that's what we do. That's what open education in general is about.
Okay.
Obviously, you're busy. When you're away from the chair, what's something that you do outside of your work that really gives you joy, pleasure?
I was going to say gardening in this moment. Not much more than gardening and resting and reading books. I mean, it's I suppose it's not just the open education, but speaking about AI in education there's a lot of it. I mean, people are expecting me to give talks all the time. So it's very quickly tiring. And so you do need to find your moments to rest and to relax. So no, nothing energetic. I don't go mountaineering and things like that.
No, I think what you described is the perfect thing to be doing. So I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you on your Friday afternoon. And got a little bit of quiet time at the office there in Nantes. And I want to thank people out there listening to this episode of OEGlobal Voices, again, the podcast that we do here at Open Education Global. Each episode, we select a different musical track, trying to find something that's relevant. And I choose music from the Free Music Archive because it's all Creative Commons license and it supports independent musicians. I found an interesting track called Leader of Tomorrow by an artist named X-Cute, and it's licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial License. Colin will have to wait till I edit this to find out what kind of music I picked. And you'll find this episode on our site, voices.oeglobal.org. And we also try to start conversations about the topics in our OEG Connect community space or wherever you interact with us on social media. And anybody listening and you want to, suggest someone we should have on the show or suggest yourself, just please let us know. And I always enjoy talking with you, Colin. I've been lucky that we've had these opportunities to engage, and you always answer my call for request, and I just so appreciate that.
It's been a pleasure, as usual.